But what about crossing a mastodon with a T-Rex? Come on, Tim. Like, no? All
How
right.
about a mastodon with a mouse? Would that be interesting?
It would be scared of itself. Rhiannon in Nebraska, watching on YouTube. Thanks for waiting, Rhiannon. Your question for Tim.
Sure. Hi. Thank you for taking my call. It's probably going to be kind of a weird question, but I've met a lot of Torah observant, quote-unquote Christians, but I don't think they call themselves that. Yeah, and they're super sweet. I'm like part of a couple of Facebooks, and a lot of the women, I like to head cover, and they do, and they bake and all the sweet things. But anyway, that might sound silly, but I'm trying to understand, like, if a Catholic wanted to be a Torah observant, I'm not saying I do, but if they wanted to, and like things like following the feast days and the Sabbath, and like no pork and things like that, would that be kind of like going against the fulfillment that Christ brought?
Right.
Or would that be fine? Because a lot of them are very, like, I don't want to say they're anti-Catholic, but kind of, because they think, I guess, that we changed everything. And so I'm just trying to get a good understanding about it.
Sure. Here's the key. From the beginning, the church has always said, in fact, this goes right back to St. Paul himself, back to the First Council of Jerusalem in Acts chapter 15. In the early church, there were many Jewish Christians who didn't quite convert all the way, right? They were still holding on to some of their Judaism, and they were, we commonly refer to them now as Judaizers. A lot of what St. Paul wrote, his letter to the Galatians, to the Romans, and the inspired author, whoever it was who wrote Hebrews, the whole book is all about this problem of these Jewish converts who were saying, hey, it's great that you believe in Jesus, but you also got to go back to the Old Testament, and at the time the temple was still standing, so you had to go to the temple, you had to offer sacrifice, you had to circumcise and all of that for salvation. And that would be the sort of defining matter, because St. Paul himself was not opposed to, nor was the church, doing certain of these things. I mean, in Acts chapter 21, of course, where is that? Right around verse 3, in the first few verses there, he has Timothy circumcised. Tell me that God doesn't have a sense of humor to put that story in the book of Acts. But, as you may know, Paul was causing quite a stir and saying no to the Torah and yes to the gospel, and so people wanted to kill him. And so Timothy, whose mother was a Jew, his father was a Greek, because his mother was a Jew, hey, what's up with this? He's not circumcised. Paul had him circumcised just so they wouldn't kill him, number one, but to say that, look, we don't have a problem with this. It's just teaching that it's necessary for salvation. That's where Paul drew the line, and that's where in Galatians chapter 5, verses 1 through 4, for example, he says, you are fallen from grace, you who are teaching that, circumcision and such is necessary for salvation. You have fallen from grace. So the idea of, practicing some Jewish things and whatnot is not illicit, but believing that it has anything to do with salvation is. And if you start binding other Catholics to it, that's where you step over the line. I think the bottom line for us in helping folks, Seventh-day Adventists, you find a little of this, and there are various different sects that say you have to keep certain, and there's different sects that have different things. Like Seventh-day Adventists will say, well, you have to keep the kosher laws, because kosher laws go back before actually the law of Moses. And, things like that. The Ten Commandments, for example, they will say, we're bound by the Ten Commandments, which they say includes the Sabbath, as distinct from, say, Levitical law or ceremonial law that's passed away, right? So there's all sorts of fine distinctions here, but here's the key that you want to point out to folks. According to the New Testament, the law is gone. The old covenant is no longer binding on Christians for salvation. And by the way, that includes the Ten Commandments. Inasmuch, I love the way that Catechism of the Council of Trent puts it, we don't follow the Ten Commandments because Moses told us to. And by the way, that's clearly what St. Paul teaches in 2 Corinthians 3, verse 7. He says, now if the dispensation of death carved in letters on stone, came with such splendor that the Israelites could not look at Moses' face because of its brightness, fading as this was, will not the dispensation of the Spirit be attended with even greater splendor? So notice, yes, when Charlton Heston got the Ten Commandments on the mountain and his face is glowing, all of that, Paul says, fading as that was, it's gone. We have a new Moses. We have a new law, right? Hebrews chapter 7, verses 11 and 12. If perfection comes through the Levitical priesthood, what further need was there that another priest should arise and be called after the order of Melchizedek and not after the order of Aaron? For where there is a change of priesthood, there is a change of law. Folks have to understand, we are under the law of Christ. 1 Corinthians 9:21, St. Paul tells us, we're under the law of Christ. Galatians 6:1 and 2, the law of Christ, folks. Are we almost out of time here? But here's the bottom line. We are under the law of Christ. Romans chapter 8 says it as well. But here's the key. The law of Christ includes the natural law, which is what the Ten Commandments are, the natural law written in stone, minus what day we worship. See, the Sabbath is a ceremonial component stuck in the Ten Commandments. This is why St. Paul would say in Colossians 2:16, let no one judge you with regard to meat or drink, or with regard to festivals, that is the yearly Sabbaths, the new moons, the monthly holy days, or the Sabbaths, which is the Sunday Sabbath. These things are but a shadow. The substance is of Christ. These have passed away. The inspired author of Hebrews in chapter 10 will say the same thing concerning all of the law. It's but a shadow. It's passed away. The substance is Christ. So we're under the law that is the law of Christ, which includes, yes, the Ten Commandments. Jesus said so, quoting, thou shalt not commit adultery and kill and so forth. Yes, we're under that law, but only because it is what Paul describes in Romans 2:14 as the natural law written on the heart. Not because it is the dispensation of death carved in letters of stone. And why does he call it a dispensation of death, the Ten Commandments and the law in the Old Testament? Because we couldn't keep it apart from grace. We couldn't keep it. See, the law came by Moses, John chapter 1 tells us, but grace and truth comes through Jesus Christ. Very important that we understand this, folks, that we have a new law, and that's what you want to emphasize to your friend. And the old law has passed away. Remember 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 6 and 7, Hebrews chapter 7, verses 11 and 12, Romans chapter 7, especially 7 and following there, St. Paul makes very clear that the old law is gone and we have a new law in Jesus Christ. That's what you want to emphasize.
Rhiannon, thank you very, very much for that call. We got a lot of calls to go to, though, so I'm going to keep moving. I hope that was helpful to you. That's I wonder if Rhiannon, I probably should have asked her, expected quite how deep that goes, because it goes to the very foundations of what it means to be a Christian. That the law of love, the law of the gospel, is the law.
Amen.
And any other law,
and and that includes the law of the church. Because Jesus tells us, in Matthew 18:15 through 18, if we have a fight with each other, we go to each other, we try to sell it, we take one or two, we still can't sell it, we take it to the church. And the one who fails to hear the church is to be as a heathen and a publican, for whatever the church binds on earth is bound in heaven. There Jesus tells all of us we're also bound to follow the law of the church. Hence you have the introduction of a new calendar, holy days, and so forth. Yeah. We are bound to follow as Christians.
I'm really glad Rhiannon asked that question. Hey, Tim's book, Behold Your Mother, A Biblical and Historical Defense of the Marian Doctrines, is one of the many things on sale right now at the store-wide summer sale at shop.catholic.com.
Is my book Nuts and Bolts on sale too?
Yes. Almost all of the books, Tim, audio, DVD, tracks, and digital products are on sale. Tell me if this makes sense to you. 10 to 25% off and more.
Wow.
That doesn't seem like it seems like 10 to something else off. 10 to 25% and more.
And more.
That seems
wow. That means some things are really seriously.
Yeah, right.
Wow. 50% maybe?
Look, I got all these DVDs that you made and CDs. Catholics in the Culture War, Defending Your Faith, New Eve, Mediatrix and Mother, The shocking truth about the Pope and the Church Fathers. Yes, it is shocking. Tim Staples versus Greg, your debates that went on for a week.
And I got about 20 more.
Yeah. But they're all stacked up here just so I could let people know everything's on sale
Amen,
at shop.catholic.com. Go there. No promo code, just shop. Hundreds of great resources on sale.
DVDs, CDs, books, it's all there.
Yeah, even tracts. Tracts. We'll be right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live with Tim Staples is coming right back.